Good evening. Thanks for coming. I'd like to call the meeting to order at 6:04 PM. Please note the location of the emergency exits. And everyone, please join me for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mrs. Giller?
Here.
Mr. Jackson?
Here.
Mrs. Snyder? Excused. Mrs. Gendron?
Here.
Paradis?
Here.
Mr. Rose? Excused. Mrs. Carey? Here. Thank you, Mrs. Ramsey. At this point, we'd like to turn the meeting over to Superintendent O'Shea.
Yes, thank you. Hi, everyone. Welcome. So to start off this evening, we have Principal Burt, Principal of Abram Lansing Elementary School. He's going to discuss the school comprehensive education plan with you. Mr. Burt and his team have been very busy throughout the summer meeting, working on the plan. This will be on the September 11th. Is that the meeting date, Mrs. Ramsey? Agenda for recommendation for approval. I know you did just receive it today. Mr. Burt is going to go through some components of it, and then if you have, questions in the future, you can direct them my way. I'll make sure to get back to you. So, Mr. Burt.
First of all, thank you for this. I know most principals don't get the opportunity to come to a board meeting in the summertime. So thank you for this.
Most welcome. Thank you.
If you want to do that again. So I want to start just a little bit globally. Even with our APPR, right, the expectations for years has been that if a student's in our classroom, we want them to grow a year. And that makes sense, right? If Mrs. Carey was a teacher and she has 27 kids, I'd expect all 27 kids to grow a year's worth under her tutelage. It's kind of what we would pay her for. And to be honest, 20 years ago, it was like sunshine, rain, and a little fertilizer, and it would happen automatically. Now, with the way the world has changed and expectations of education, we really have to work to make that year's growth with all 27 students. But the other challenge that we run into is if Mr. Jackson is one of your students and he comes in 2 years below grade level, and you make a year's growth, which was what we asked you to do, Mr. Jackson is still 2 years below grade level. So that becomes one of our challenges. So we do talk about a year's growth in our plan. We also talk about looking at grade level achievement. But here's where the challenge comes. So these are our overall iReady scores from this past year, from June. And on the left-hand side, you'll see we are very proud of the fact that many of our students made more than a year's growth. That's why it says 131% at the top, 116 on the bottom. But at our June faculty meeting, we're celebrating that. I also included what's on the right, which is at the end of June, and we'll look at math because that's the most exciting one. Although I should have done this in my head because Mr. Jackson's already figured it out, that over 50% of our kids are below grade level. Now, asking classroom teachers to make more than a year's growth is a Herculean task. And in some way it's unfair because we haven't been designed that way. I mean, I still have kids coming out of college that think just water and sunshine and, fertilizer and they're going to be fine. So we have to do some work on that. And you'll see that in our plan a few minutes later. But expecting a classroom teacher to bring a student 2 or 3 years growth is not fair. So iReady does help us out by giving what's called stretch goals. And a stretch goal is, okay, make more than a year's growth, make in some cases a year 0.25, and some kids maybe a year and a half. Their guarantee, which we haven't seen exactly yet, but their guarantee is that over 2 to 3 years, if we keep making more than a year's growth, we'll catch some of our kids up. So we're going to talk in our plan. You'll see we talk in our plan of our yearly growth goals. We want to keep looking at achievement because the state looks at that as well. But we're also asking our teachers to start looking at stretch goals. Here's the other thing, and Ms. O'Shea and I have talked about this a lot, so I need to make sure I'm clear about this. my teachers are dancing as fast as they can. And one of the other challenges that we have is, I think it's a challenge anyway. Our entire system has created an infrastructure of tiers, right? If it is not doing well, well, we're gonna do tier 2. Try to figure out a good handle of what an actual tier 2 is really tough. I spent 3 days at an NTSS conference and I couldn't even get the presenters to tell me what a good tier 2 model is. So instead of worrying about tiers, we have 2 prongs that we're also looking at, and that is, 1, supporting our teachers, giving our teachers what they need. We do that by making sure they have a great curriculum. We're really comfortable with our Ready Math and our Into Reading. We did some workshops just a week and a half ago that really got our teachers fired up to what Into Reading is offering this year. That's new. Our Ready Math has changed a bit as well, so we're looking at that. The other thing that I've been talking about for 32 years, so maybe I shouldn't say that because that tells how unsuccessful I've been, but we also need to try to be proactive. And it's not in my PowerPoint, it is in the plan. In parentheses, I believe, one of the things we're doing in our WIN groups, we're asking our kindergarten WIN group to be foundations. Part of that is because I want to make sure all 3 kindergarten classes are focused on that. Research says if our kids come out of kindergarten with a good understanding of decoding and vocabulary, that they should be successful. So we are taking 3 additional staff members and putting them in kindergarten during WIN time and making sure that our kids get a good dose of understanding what Foundations and all Foundations has to offer is. The other thing that's different, the red is highlighting what we've changed this year. Most of the plan is the same. I'm a firm believer in you can't make radical change in an organization. You can't change a ship overnight. But we're looking at some things that really needed to be tweaked. So last year we talked about common boards, asking our teachers to put their goals for the day on a common board that we can look at. If I walk in the room, I know what they're teaching in math. I know what they're teaching in ELA. We know what they're talking about in second step. What we're asking them to do this year is also add the WIN goal. And here's why. We spent 2 years all excited about WIN. We weren't as successful last year as we wanted to be. There's another issue that's coming up in a few minutes. But I wasn't quite sure that the teachers were goal focused in their WIN groups. One of the reasons for that is we choose our WIN groups based on iReady data. And when iReady data selects 7 kids and said they should be in the group, iReady will give us almost 20 different goals to work with. And without thinking, we hand a teacher 7 kids and say, now work on these 27 goals. That's not going to work either. So my 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade teachers this year worked with our BOCES coach to try to clump, not a professional term, but try to organize all the different goals at the different levels that we ask our WIN groups to look at. And then we're asking teachers to choose 1 or 2 specific goals over the 6-week cycle that we use, and we're going to assess those goals. So we're focusing our WIN groups a little bit more. It was a long way to say a really simple thing. We just want to remind you that we're also upping this a tiny bit. It's not brand new. We said last year, this is part of the iReady expectations, but we're asking kindergarten through 5th grades at the end of their first round of iReady, look at where their score is, look at what their growth should be, and then say, what do you want to do between now and January? We've also been working with BOCES, however, a tiny little change in how can we start to assess that our students are making those goals before January. So is there something we can look at in November and let our kids know that they're on the right path based on their My Path that they take every day in iReady. So we're working on that as well to make sure our kids are familiar with where they're headed and how they're getting there. Time is a killer. We're looking a little more carefully at teachers' daily schedules. And by that, I mean, every time, and I totally get this as well. Every time we ask our teachers to change a little thing, there's not enough time in the day. And that makes sense to me until I play this game. The union people should close their eyes. But our day is about 360 minutes. They get 30 minutes for lunch. Mr. Jackson, don't look at this either because I'm not sure my math is right. We get 30 minutes for special. So now we're down to 300 minutes during the day. We want 90 minutes of ELA, that gives us 210 minutes, 60 minutes of math. We're down to 150 minutes. We're doing 45 minutes for one group. That leaves 100 minutes, an hour and a half at the end of the day, right? But it also means all the other stuff that I put on the left-hand side. We are asking them to do morning meeting. We're asking them at least one time a week to do second step and follow-up. Social studies and science need to fit in there, especially now that they've upped our fifth grade science test. We really need to revise our science and make sure that we're focused on that. So we have asked a couple folks to help us out and asked our teachers to give us a really clear schedule every day so we can look at how their schedule works and maybe help them adjust the schedule. But we're also working on, so under professional development, are there ways that we can work on transition times? And there's apparently, I haven't met her yet, but there's apparently a lady at BOCES that works on the NARIC side that's a coach, a tech coach, that has 20 or 30 different little games that can be played during transition time, or while the kids are eating snack, or while they're eating breakfast in the morning. That can be an assessment or an exit ticket for the lessons they had the day before or the lesson that they just learned. So we're gonna work on trying to find better ways to do transition to fit more in our day without stressing our teachers out. I think that's the most important thing. We also need to focus, we mentioned this last year, we've started to look at the data for this, but I'm not sure we're using the proper teaching methods for our Black and brown kids. But research is showing that they're thinking differently, right? They come from a different situation often. And so we want to start looking at, are there ways that we need to change our teaching to be more successful? I put in the, well, you'll see I put in the plan that for the last couple of years, we've worked on the rising tide raises all the boats kind of thing. We just need to be a little more focused on our target populations. And we're also looking at, Ms. O'Shea has raised our attention as administrators that the Hispanic population group is enlarging quickly here in Cohoes, and their numbers are also not stellar. So we need to make sure that we're also thinking about the best ways to teach those folks as well. And then you'll see this, I think, in the next line, if I remember correctly. I've worked really hard. Ms. O'Shea and I are trying to rectify this in fifth grade this year, but to have a special ed staff member at every grade level. There are a number of reasons for that. You'll see that coming up as well. But now that I have that at 5 of the 6 grade levels, now I need to make sure that it's valuable in the work. So there are times when I have 2 professionals in the room at the same time. Not everybody has a good handle on how to do that. So there are multiple professionals at BOCES that are willing to come and spend some time with us and help us really understand. But I also put professional development under time because, and Ms. O'Shea and I have arm wrestled about this often in the years that we've worked together. I get 45 minutes staff development called, shoot, what do I do every month? Faculty meeting, right? 9 times out of the year. I don't get one in September. My September one is getting everybody ready and doing all the safe and that sort of stuff. So 45 minutes times 9 is not even close to the amount of time we need to spend to make actual change. If we had substitutes, that helped out a lot. We used to use our permanent subs to cover classrooms so our teachers could learn. So we also have to start being more crafty in our time and finding ways to provide the professional development that our staff needs. We are also asking our special ed teachers to help us with AIS this year, specifically in math, because we do win groups for ELA, and we're noticing that obviously we're on a list for our math, so we're asking our SPED teachers to help us out by providing AIS at the grade level that they work at. So my second grade special ed teacher, her numbers are about 3 hours of required special ed time with 2 special classes, 2 consultant teachers. So that gives me a good hour and a half to 2 hours of her time to kind of say, all right, now I need you to work with some of my math kids. Last year we had a couple glitches. We wanted to start this way. It didn't work this year. I talked to them in June. They know we're walking in with that expectation, so our hope is to make that be much more successful. Consistent win groups. I was actually talking to a couple teachers about that today. And part of that is a me problem because y'all know I love the arts. So if I bring a couple of dance groups in on Tuesday afternoon and I've got 2 classes that are missing their win groups, what's my priority? I'd like to say my priority is the dance group, but I'm supposed to say that my priority is making sure the kids get academic instruction. So that's one of the problems. That's the me problem. The second one is that often if one of my 3 teachers was out, the teachers would cancel wing group. So we're asking them to work with us to come up with a plan B and a plan C. So if one teacher's out, we still do the wing groups. We just find a way to recoup what's going on and reassign the students. So we think when there's lots of studies out there that when works, we just want to make sure that we're consistent at what we know works well. We want to get a little more support from our parents. And I think one of the things that happened in this last year especially, not everybody understands the parent report. We send them home by Parent Square, not everybody opens them up, not everybody looks at them. So after this first round, I'm going to encourage people to come to maybe our October PTO meeting or find ways to have conversations just to let people know what they're looking at. So they're much more well-informed when it comes to January and June as to how successful their students have been. And then it's starting to show up on my calendar. Consistent times of actually looking at the data. We do look at iReady. We're going to start to look more carefully at our win group, especially since we said we're asking teachers to come up with specific goals now. We're going to ask at the end of the 6 weeks that we take some kind of assessment to see if we've met those goals or not, so that we're consistently looking at data through there. Our BOCES coach has already started creating exit teachers tickets with our folks. And so we're working on daily, weekly, and then at the end of the 6-week session as well. And then we need consistent cycles of data for our behavior, which leads into the reset room. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Last year it was entertaining for me, I should say. When we looked at the data at the end of the year, we had almost 800 times that folks in the reset room had been called to a classroom. And my reset folks were like, oh my God, that was so much. And I said, oh no, you should have been here last year. So first of all, we were like, 800 was a celebration for me. 800 was kind of, but one of the things that we need to do, not at the end of the year, is we're developing a plan now that every month we look at our data. I think in the 3rd trimester, I sent you what our data looks like on the Google form. Ms. San Giacomo has been helping us really work on that data so we can pull information out quickly and easily by class, by student, by space. The other question that we didn't ask as much last year and didn't focus on was what do we do with Pete when he came out of the classroom? Because sometimes over 3 or 4 days, 3 different people touch base with him, and we need to start finding out what works and make sure all 3 or 4 of us are working on the same thing. So we really think our reset room is set, although I just lost one of my key players and we're in the process of trying to replace her. I think the young lady we're working with will be really great in that room. She's going to need some time to get settled in. Then I also put in parentheses, with Ms. O'Shea's permission, I applied through the justice system of New York to be a peer mediation school. We met with some of the mediators yesterday or the day before. We are in fact we're the first elementary school in this area of New York that started to look at this. They were quite funny, the 2 trainers, because they've been working with middle school and high school for years. And one of the ladies said, you know, it was last year or the year before we sat there and we were pulling our hair out because we're teaching kids skills that they should have learned when they were like 7, right? But we're waiting until middle school, high school to start giving them the skills. So they were very excited. Our goal is not so much the mediation part this year. We'd like kids by the 2nd semester to be offering some mediation. But the biggest part is we're gonna have 20 students that are learning vocabulary and understanding of how to handle situations you're comfortable with, to the point where you can also step in and help somebody else. So we do think that eventually is gonna be a big help in our reset room as well. The nice thing too is we're working with mostly third and fourth graders, although they changed my mind because they would like me, Rachel will get you hooked into this too. They would really like me to train some fifth graders and then encourage some middle school to take advantage of them when they cross the field. So I've had to shift my mindset a little bit, but we're excited about that. The team that we met with yesterday is really pretty incredible. So I think that's going to be a change in the work that we do as well. That's it.
It's a lot.
Before there's any questions before that, I want to thank Mr. Byrd. I know that throughout this plan, there's certain times that I kind of push gently. Thank you
There are a
for,
couple words that you use that I would discuss later.
but Mr. Byrd and his team, they're very insightful, very thoughtful, very flexible when needed. And, I think each year through this process, it shows with the leadership of your BLT.
I'll be able to agree.
And stronger. And one thing I do want to mention is there is the school improvement grant, the funds that Abram Lansing receives through that does fund the staff in the reset room, the professional development. I know Rachel's also through the Office of Mental Health grant, works with Cliff on some of those initiatives as well. And I think Rachel works closely with training when needed as well. So I just wanted to mention that. So thank you.
So just since the time that I've been part of the board, I've been identified. I know that it's frustrating for your teachers. They work so hard and some that I've spoken to, when I've had the opportunity to be in your building, are frustrated. So that block, but they're still moving forward. So like every day they go hard because they just want the best for the kids, right? And just the fact that you've taken a look at what you did last year, every year there's progress and there's change, and your willingness to say, we tried, it didn't work, we need to shift is appreciated. It's difficult and we understand that, but we're grateful.
I was chomping on the bit to show you and then found out today I'm not allowed to, but there's been incremental progress in our state scores. Incremental, not, life-changing. The other thing, and I don't want to take up your time, but sometime a deep dive into how we get on the list. So here's the quick short version, is for every one of the subgroups in schools, they put all the schools on a continuum. And even if we were all successful, it's the bottom 10%. So my question was, if all the 10% improved, we'd still be in the bottom 10%. So the first person that worked with us when we were on a list is now an associate commissioner of education. So it's kind of nice to have friends in high places. She wants this process to be in every school. And I will say, I won't wish that on all of my peer friends, but there is value to this. And one of the strengths of my team has been not just get off the list, and it's my requirement to say, but it's also to be, is our school better at the end of this round than it was the last time? Even if we're not off the list per se. I'm not privy to where I am in that 10%. If we're at 9.5, maybe I should find out where some of those schools are and we should, start sending kids there or something. But other than that, I think our team especially has been very good at saying, we're going to use this process and make us
To
all.
make it better for our kids, whether or not, we're always having to take the funding from state ed. So, and use it to make our kids more successful.
Absolutely.
So.
One of these things is it's basically a tool to systemize your processes. And I do like and appreciate how, you are encouraging that communication to say, okay, you know, we have to tell kids what our expectations are. We also have to tell our employees what expectations are, and to like set expectations based on, even if it's something as small as this much time, or, you know, setting a goal setting, things like that. You know, I think that that would be something that would be useful for all of our schools, to be able to look at and review their data, see if what they're doing is improving, and pivot if needed. But you guys are definitely a flexible group, and we certainly appreciate all the work and effort that you put in. Yeah. Thank you.
So next up, our network administrator, PJ Mahoney, is going to give you a technology update.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. So for this year, we ordered Chromebooks for the 5th and the 9th grade. With the plan being that the 5th grade will use theirs through middle school, 9th grade will use theirs through the high school. 5th grade ones are at the elementary buildings, they're labeled, they're ready to go. The 9th grade arrived Monday. They're actually down in one of the conference rooms. We need to put some labels on them, and then we have some cases for them, but they'll be ready for the students. We've also ordered FRP laptops, but we won't be seeing those until probably September, mid-September roughly. This summer, we finished our copier deployment. So we have new Kioseras throughout all the buildings. At the same time that we deployed the new copiers, finished deploying the copiers, we also rolled out PaperCut, which is a badge printing system. So staff will use their badge to release their print jobs. There's also a code on the back of their badge that they can use if they don't have their badge with them. So hopefully that will cut down on paper waste, but it also is by design, a secure printing. So if anyone is printing confidential information, the printer's not just going to spit it out and leave it there for anyone to come by and take a look at it. Because you have to release it with your badge. We also ordered Chromebooks for staff, but those have not arrived yet.
But staff have Chromebooks.
Yeah, but staff do have Chromebooks, just getting some to refresh what we currently have. Also this summer, we moved from Securely as a web filter. Updates, which we're having a couple headaches with, and we went back to GoGuardian, which we had used in the past, and hopefully it will be better for teachers, especially in the classroom portion where they keep students on task during educational sessions. And then into the fall, once we get a few once Bed's day is over and a couple other things are out of the way, we're going to be transitioning from Meals Plus to Titan for our food service program. They're doing away with Meals Plus, and all the districts that are on Meals Plus are transitioning to Titan. So that's once things calm down, we'll be doing that transition.
So in a couple minutes, I'm going to talk about the Schoology school tool transition. In case you're wondering where that stands, I'm going to provide you an update. Other than that, do you have questions for PJ? And so PJ, I know it's been an interesting summer for you with some outages here and there with the construction. I know that you're tired today because today involved lifting a lot of stuff. But so we do really appreciate you, appreciate Tom. Questions for PJ?
I just have a question on the FRP laptops. Are these replacement laptops? Are these for the new FRP?
These are
students?
for
I
the
know
new FRP students.
Okay.
Yep.
And do they have something to use in
They
the
have
short term?
Chromebooks
Okay,
that they were using over the summer. So they have Chromebooks to use right now.
so this is just the incoming cohort?
Ninth grade,
Ninth
yes.
It's part of, these are funded through our FRP grant. We needed to get approval for the grant to then, purchase the Chromebooks, but they'll have devices. Well, they, like you said, they have attended, the incoming cohort attended a summer session, correct? Yeah. So,
But they'll be able to participate in all of their
Yeah.
college level classes to
Yeah.
do the things that they need to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it.
any other questions for PJ?
Thank you, Mr. Mahoney.
Well,
Thank you. So today, Jensen Giacomo, our instructional technology integration specialist, did school tool refresher training for veteran teachers along with Schoology, and also for our new and second year teachers, a second session, because they had not used this in the past. And I know there were, my numbers, I don't have them with me, but over 25 plus, I think it was 28 veteran teachers here today. 9 new or second year teachers. Thank you, Mr. Charlon, for helping out in the second session with the newer teachers. The training appeared to go well. Everybody seemed very, very positive. There will be additional training at the start of this school year. In addition, Jen's developed, videos, information online for staff to access. I was here a bit for both sessions. She said the number of questions were actually pretty minimal compared to last year. So I wanted to also let you know that we'll be communicating with parents later this week about the move to school tool and Schoology. What they will learn is that they will be able, when we did this before, parents did not have access to school tool. Now they will have access to school tool for attendance and for discipline upon completion by the administrator. Also school tool for, the progress reports, the quarterly reports. It's the grade book of record. They'll be able to, school tool week, Schoology syncs weekly with school tool, so they will be able to see grades on school tool. But in the communication, we're going to say that in terms of assignments, missing assignments, grades, the best place to look there is Schoology, because that will be, updated by the teachers, regularly, that there might be a little discrepancy because of the week sync. Teachers can push, there's a grade pass back now, so the teachers don't have to double entry anymore when they're doing report cards. One of the things they learned today was setting up the grade book in both systems, so there's a grade book pass back. They can sync more often and push that out. But so that will be the communication. I also met with Katrina today. She's really been, busy transferring between both systems. Not everything transferred as easily from, our last year's system into this one. But everything's set in terms of scheduling, counseling, what students need. She's continuing to set up programs using ClassLink. So in that communication to parents, it will say that the actual system, the buttons on the website, et cetera, that will be pushed out on September 4th. So before school starts, but not in advance. We're working through some sign up things. So for example, School Tool, she informed me, School Tool can send out, automatic through Parent Square account provisions for, one parent of record. The buildings will be working on a system of then sending the information home to parents to have them add the second. We just we were concerned about just transferring over the accuracy. So that will be put in place. Also, information about how to set up, parent accounts. I think teachers feel confident in working with their students in terms of showing them how to utilize Schoology. Really are two groups that will need more than refresher training, our incoming sixth graders and our seventh graders. And the middle school's working on a plan for that, but again, feels confident in terms of being able to do that, in class with their students. Mr. Charlone has been involved in each step of this, so I think if you have questions, you can ask me, and I can also ask Scott. Any questions?
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
So since I'm talking about training and other things, I've had a really enjoyable 2 weeks because I've gotten to meet, so yesterday was our new professionals. We had 14 new teachers and teacher assistants in this room. It was a very productive group. Scott and Matt, I met with them for a while as well, and just so enthusiastic. And we went around the room for introductions and asked them to tell a little bit about their background. And it ended up with all of them starting to talk about why they chose us. And some of them chose us for pay cuts too. And it was all about, it was about collaboration, about working together as a team, about what they've heard, about what they saw. So it was a very, very positive day. Also, was it the week before time? All of the teacher leaders, we met together, middle school and high school teacher leaders, and very powerhouse team. So first of all, during their opening days, they're going to be all working with their staff on consistent use of Schoology too, so that as a student, goes from class to class in the high school, it might be phrased a little differently, but they won't have to kind of like reinvent and recreate, well, what do I do now? So in terms of, posting assignments, in terms of other things. And I shared the agenda with you with some of the notes, but the notes don't capture the rich discussion. And so I'm looking forward to this year, and we'll be having joint meetings throughout the year. So that was some of this week, and really looking forward to opening day as well. So any questions about any of that before we talk about board goals? Not board goals, district goals, sorry. All right. So, and then I'll turn it over to Stacy when I'm done. Oh, I forgot to mention, Rachel, over the summer, 2 separate sessions, 4 days each of TCIS, Therapeutic Crisis Intervention Training for staff, to really make sure, and more training will happen in the fall for other staff, that staff have the techniques to de-escalate student behavior, and then for specific staff who need some enhanced level of training. So I want to thank you. I know I saw you coming back at the end of each of those trainings each night, and you look kind of tired, like PJ was today. Yeah, yeah. So
I mean, these seem like a great use of resources during the summer to
Yeah.
prepare for a really smooth opening. So thank you for all of you for that.
and I think Cliff mentioned into reading training, and we had over 30 something teachers there. So very positive. So these are still in draft format. I shared them with you earlier. They're refreshed, but I wanted to talk through, and then, so the first one, and as I was doing these, I realized, some of them can really fit under all of our beliefs and commitments. But first of all, iReady, as Mr. Byrd discussed, one of the goals will focus on the percentage of students achieving 1 year of growth on iReady. The next goal will focus on the percentage of students achieving their individual stretch goal. So the two, the 1 year of growth and the stretch goal. We have the individual data per building. I'm working with Virginia Bond through Capital Region BOCES to pull the reports to really set meaningful targets for these, and we're not quite there yet. So for example, here is the goal for Lansing, here's the goal for Harmony, here's the goal for Van Skyke. Does it make sense, and how do we put it together as a 3 through 8 goal, or as a 3 through 5 and 6 through 8? Looking through all of that, and the stretch goals. So she is working with me, full transparency. I've never had to pull iReady reports or any of that before. So she's an excellent source of information, and we're meeting next week. So then I'll have the numbers for that. Graduation rate at Cohoes High School. So iReady for the high expectation growth for the 3 through 8. We'll still focus on state assessments, share them, but really it's difficult to compare year to year, and we think iReady is the best in terms of 3 through 8. With the high school, I mean, definitely, and with Laura and her team, they're looking at things like Regents scores, where we need to increase, et cetera. The proposed goal is the graduation rate of students in Cohoes High School will increase by 2% for the 24-25 school year. It's currently 81%. As I was doing these, I went back and forth. Do we want to say 1 year? Do we want to say for the next 3 years? I think I'd like to say 1 year, see where this lands, and then start after this year for 3 years or 5 years. But that's open for discussion, of course. Chronically absent. It's not just our school district, but chronic absenteeism is a huge issue throughout. All of our buildings in their plans are saying that they will want to see a decrease in each building of chronic absenteeism by 2 percentage points. So in terms of this goal, I think it's I think we can say percentage of students will decrease in each building by 2 percentage points, and then have the baseline below, which might be something the way iReady goes. So before I go on, because the rest are definitely, I have some questions, thoughts about these, thoughts about the iReady, thoughts about the graduation rate, and thoughts about the chronic absenteeism district goal. Okay. So in terms of future ready knowledge and skills, and I know that we've had discussion around STEAM and need to really continue this and move forward. I'm struggling with the measurable part of the goal, but I will share a few different thoughts, and then, have it open for discussion. So 2 of them are not specifically measurable in terms of being embedded in the goal, but they can be measurable in terms of the experiences. So 1 is research and provide professional learning opportunities in STEAM education, so educators have the resources and knowledge they need to provide STEAM experiences to all students, and that can be measurable by the number of opportunities, the number of teachers attending. Develop STEAM literacy in students through a cohesive program of learning, which includes a progression of problem-solving skills. So that's measurable through looking at where it starts to get embedded in the curriculum, although it's not in the goal. So this is what we were talking about, though, and those could be considered action steps versus the goal, actually. I just wanted to let you know. Increase STEAM experiences to prepare students for future opportunities in a global dynamic landscape workplace. For the 24-25 school year, at least 2 additional experiences will be provided at each grade level. So I'm wondering, based on the conversations that we had, thoughts about that specific goal. Measurability, is it, or the combination of that and the others is that leading itself in the direction, not enough, not the right measure?
My concern with the soft goals is we had some last year and I personally don't think we made progress in this particular area.
Mhm.
And so when we start with soft goals again, it makes it difficult to say, yes, we made progress. No, we didn't. I think these are the right pathways. But I think it just takes further conversations to lay out some bullet points of specific things.
Smart goals.
Want to accomplish. Develops the efficiency, like, let's lay out by grade level, these are the things we think kids should know.
Mhm.
And how or where within the curriculum are we embedding them so what they're taught. You know, like, if that's what we come out of this year with, like, I view that as progress.
What about the 2 additional experience?
The additional experiences, I think, are great at the younger levels. I think at the middle and high school, we can aim a little higher at some point. I understand, like, this is a tough one because this is one that, especially at the high school, we have to plan ahead because likely it will involve staffing and budgeting to really make long-term progress with curriculum.
Will there also be kind of very clearly defined parameters about what constitutes an experience?
We can do this is, because this is a work in progress. I mean, I think that we can talk about a broader measurable goal and then do some of the work over the next, couple months to really break that into pieces.
But I mean, is this something that's worth a committee? Is
It
this
is worth
something
a
that's subgroup?
It's worth a
that
subgroup.
We pull the people in who are.
Yeah.
Like, engaged in this area and say, how do we do this?
Yeah.
And then provide the tools to be able to.
So I have had some conversation. I talked about it as like a STEAM task force. I think that's the terminology that I used. And we have internal people for sure that we can use. And then there's also, some external support we can do. So.
Should we be, just to identify this very clearly as a board priority, should we make that a board committee? Or should we give you time to map out our path before we make a board committee? I just asked maybe if a board member could serve on your
A
task
board
force.
member, so for example, our career education committee, that's not a board level committee.
Mhm.
But there was a board member on the committee, and I think that gives us, I think that would be the proposed path. I don't know for sure if you know any board member who would like to be on this task force, no. But I think that is, I think that's the
There's a
way.
lot of stuff that I use over the
Yeah.
summer, that I use during the school year, that's free, that's
Yeah.
available, it's small kits, none of it's expensive.
Mhm.
It's just that continuing steps of, these are the things I want to make sure my kids know how to do.
Mhm.
And understand how things interact with each other, apply elsewhere in life.
So there's some new things in our curriculum this year that we're just learning about. So for example, iReady Math KN1 has provided more hands-on. I know the teachers are going to be learning more about it, more hands-on. It says more STEM focused. So there's also some things that, have been starting that way, but I would prefer, so our board level committees really meet 3 times a year or so and are kind of, I think, more of a district level committee with board member participation, and then subgroups from there, so. And
Agreeable, everybody's fine with that?
okay. So I think that this one falls under high expectation, future ready, and positive school climate and culture. You saw Mr. Bird's goal about making sure parents understand iReady reports. I had conversations with Mr. Perry. I mean, I remember, Sue, last year we were at the middle school in the beginning of the year, and it was like, so what are we doing for parent engagement, right? There was COVID, parents were out, can they come back? I think we did a really good job of having more opportunities this year. So that's the engagement piece, the participation piece. So my conversations with principals is the next step. So now how are we making parents partners in their children's learning? How are we communicating that? What opportunities are we given? So yeah, we want to make sure we have the popsicles in the park, the, grandparents breakfast, all that, and that is very important. So this, and again, this is, I know this is, where we'll have the discussion. Provide 1 to 2 additional opportunities for parents at each building to acquire the necessary information, knowledge, and skills to support their children's education at home and at school. So that's a parent, that's whether it be, discussion on iReady. And I think as part of this, and this has been discussed with the plans, with the principals, kind of as part of the planning process, but some specific plans for family engagement by building, including both the, the positive opportunities in terms of, the muffins with mom, like Van Skyke, and also the learning opportunities. This also ties in with some of the things through our curriculum. So for example, iReady Math has a fluency component that we weren't aware of, that parents can practice with their children at home using that software. So that's why it says information, knowledge, and skills to support their children's education at home and at school. So here's the knowledge you need, here's how you can support at school, and here's some things you can do at home.
So true partnership.
True partnership with this. I mean, I think through the BLTs and the principals, this doesn't need a committee. We're already on our way, and we find logical places within our curriculum. I have one other. So I heard the conversation around the communication, and we also had these conversations with principals too. So a variety of media will be utilized to increase awareness and support of district commitments, goals, and programs, but also to make sure we enhance our timely, coordinated communication to maximize impact. I don't have measurable there yet. I can tell you some of our plans, and we discussed this at Administrative Council. Make sure that our communication specialist is a monthly part of our Administrative Council meetings. That's going to be a great way for our principals to be able to communicate right there the upcoming events, and for us to talk around the table about, oh, these events match this, belief and commitment. I am wondering in this goal, I think it would be best after that meeting to be able to kind of outline this in terms of action steps. I mean, and just wanted input on that. Okay.
Anyone? No.
All right.
Can I just ask, some of these more solid goals with our growth and our stretched growth for individuals, grad rate, chronic absenteeism. Is there something that you can share with us to give us, where we were at year end so that we can just see, the feasibility of that goal? And, I do worry a little bit about only having iReady of a source of academic achievement. We did find, that there was, some pieces of the state assessment that were not correlated with iReady data, more specifically, like, our constructed response pieces and, it's things that I don't want to let slip away just because we're only looking at one piece, and one measure.
Yeah.
And, I know that you said Laura will be working on something with Regents. But I guess I just want to make sure that we're looking at more than just iReady scores.
So first of all, in all of our building plans, that, there are other metrics. So to answer your first question, yeah, just like with chronically absent, I'll give you the baseline for each. So
Okay.
you'll have the baseline. So we know, and principals will work on, their teams will work on, teacher leaders, we will work on the other areas. That doesn't mean those other areas aren't something to be looked at. We have to look at our state assessments for, our accountability purposes. I was thinking from the district level to have just a certain set number of measurable goals. I mean, we can continue. So for example, I had a suspension goal on here. There could be a Regents goal. I'm just thinking from the draft district goals that then get put on our websites under the beliefs and commitments to make sure that it's, a really solid, succinct. I mean, we can say increase the percentage of students achieving proficiency and have the baselines, and we have that, and that is part of the discussion. I took what our conversation was about a month ago and what it was felt that the focus would be for, these goals. The other data can be provided. Just because it's not here doesn't mean. Mr. Bird had 2 slides for you tonight to show you, and then we said we can't because it's embargoed data right now. So I can't share the baseline publicly with any of that till the state tells me I can share the embargoed data. That doesn't mean our school teams aren't looking at it. And then at some point we can share it, out at a public meeting, when we're told we can. All right. Okay.
Thank you.
Before I move on to Stacy Mackey, any questions? Well, thank you.
I'll start out with business office updates. So on tonight's agenda, we're welcoming a new district treasurer, Shelley Dame, who will be effective for 9/1. So welcome, Shelley. That is an internal promotion, so that will create a vacancy with the purchasing agent position. But no fear, I'm the deputy purchasing agent.
Which that is this?
The audit field work is scheduled for September 9th, so we needed to move that from August. So we've been diligently preparing for the audit field work. So that is with our external auditors, MMB and Company. And the tax bills are being processed and mailed as we speak. We work with NERIC for that, so our residents should expect those in the mail first week in September. For buildings and grounds, we've invited Turner to come meet with the board. at our September 11th meeting. So they'll give a full update on the progress of the project at that time. I do have some key updates that I'll share with you so that you don't have to wait until September 11th. The rubbish pile in the high school parking lot is scheduled to be removed tomorrow morning. The emergency repair for the electrical wire that was severed at the high school was permanently repaired on Saturday. They came in and did that work. And the fire alarm panels have also all been cleared here at the high school as well, so that issue is resolved. They're in the process of installing the turf field, the carpet for the turf field as we speak. The track is delayed because there was several drainage issues, and every time they were testing it, it was porous, spongy. So we had to keep adding more drainage. So that's been delayed. It requires a certain temperature, and it also requires 2 full weeks for it to set. We'll still be able to use the turf field for the end of September, as we had discussed. I think it's September 21st, maybe. We'll still be able, we're on target for that, but the track won't be available. We did invite the athletic director to sit in on our owner architect meeting. And so he'll give a period in the fall when sports are done. And if the temperatures work with us, they can do it during that time. Otherwise, we're going to have to look at it in April for a period in April. So that's known, and we're working on what that resolution will be together as a team. Also on tonight's agenda, there's a promotion for Richard Hebert, who is a cleaner at Ben Skyke, and he's being promoted to groundskeeper. So congratulations to Richard. And we also have Robert Booker, who's going to fill the vacancy over at Abram Lansing at night. So that's also very, very exciting news. An update for Director of Facilities. So the committee met last week, and we did the first round of interviews. We thought we had 3 candidates, but we only had 2. So we did 2 interviews last week, and then we have 4 scheduled for tomorrow. So 6 candidates altogether, and certainly by September 11th, we'll have a decision, and we'll share that with you then. We'd have the visual fire inspections and the boiler inspections scheduled for the coming weeks in September. And we also had annual training for facilities staff. So this was led by Tim Murphy, who's our risk management specialist at BOCES. And we had basically a half a day of training, and we kicked it off with some fun games to get the crew excited and hopefully make them feel appreciated. That was the goal. So I just wanted to say thank you to the team for all of their work to get the buildings ready for welcoming back our students and our staff this year.
They did a great job this summer.
They
Thanks.
sure did.
Please.
They sure did.
Questions for Stacy? Comments? Everybody wants to say the turf looks great?
The turf looks great. I am a little concerned about the track. But because there's by April, they're playing on the field, so and there's a track team. So I am a little concerned about that, but
They're working on a solution. Yeah, they're working on a solution.
Thank you.
can we build a little bridge so nobody?
And then upcoming events are first 2 days of school, staff development, first day of school. All of our elementaries have PBIS kickoffs, but these are the Harmony is the following week, and our middle school open house and back to school barbecue. And then we'll update you again at the next board meeting. So we did realize that the Abram Lansing Open House conflicts with the next board meeting. So
What time is open house?
6.
open house is 6, our board meeting is 6. It's on the calendar and the information, has it gone out?
On the calendar.
So, we,
Aren't both put on the calendar at the same time?
yeah, so it was a miss, the principals fill out a calendar, there is a district part that has all of it. We looked through everything to make sure there's not duplication, and it was a miss. We looked at the concerts because that happened once in the past. We looked, and it was a miss, so.
Thanks. Okay. Any board discussion of agenda items? I just want to make a point of saying that thrilled the elementary musical folks are being approved on this. We got that across the finish line. Identified it, we acted on it, we're grateful, and now our littles have their own.
Yeah, that was,
That's
I
exciting.
was excited to read that on the agenda, so that was good news.
Okay, any community discussion of agenda items? Business. Can I please have a motion that the Board of Education adopts the following resolutions of the August 28th, 2024 agenda, 6A through I, 7A through B, B, and 9A?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you. I'll second. Thank you. Mrs. Gill?
Yes.
Mr. Jack?
Yes.
Mrs. Paris?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you, Mrs. Ramsey. Any comments from board members on anything that's not on the agenda tonight? Audience, questions, comments, statements? Dates for future meetings are September 11th here in the high school. This will be the last one at the high school. And then the 25th of September, we will be back at the middle school. Both meetings are at 6 p.m. Can I ask for a motion to enter into executive session to discuss matters leading to the employment, promotion, demotion, discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of a particular person or corporation, and to discuss the terms and conditions of employment of non-union affiliated employees?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
Thank you, thank you. Mrs. Giller.
Yes.
Mr. Jackson.
Yes.
Mrs. Gendron.
Yes.
Ms. Paradis.
Yes.
Mrs. Carey. Mrs. Carey. Yes, yes, it's a yes for me. Thank you very much. Have a great start of the school year. We're very good luck for what this year brings. Thank you for coming.
See you soon.